Hello, everybody. Welcome to another election prediction video. This time we're going into a Biden v. Trump prediction for the month of June 2024, and this is a post-conviction look at the race. So it has changed a bit. I mean, we saw the New York Times poll did a comparison. They said the popular vote went from Trump plus 3 to Trump plus 1 post-conviction when they recontacted voters. And even they said that sample that they recontacted was probably going to be skewing a bit more Republican anyway. So I will say the conviction probably hurt Trump, but we're already seeing a few new polls come out that showed that some of these states that we previously had as likely blue may be a lot more competitive than we thought, especially Virginia, which is pretty surprising to say. And honestly, I think a state that could also be like Virginia would be maybe New Mexico and Maine. We could probably see those states go down to lean blue. Same with New Hampshire. Probably see it going to lean blue too. But we'll be going into that prediction as we go through this video. For now, we're just going to do the safe blue and safe red states. And I consider a safe state that's above 10% for either side, by the way. That's my current margin system for this. Okay, and let's just keep going here. So starting off with New Jersey and New York, their polls actually do have a very interesting race going on in New Jersey, I believe. Let's see if I can find it on this Race to the White House website. I really like this one because it shows you what polls they weigh the most. But yeah, an Emerson poll only has Biden up here by 6, but it's a safe blue state, and those undecideds are probably going to end up going for Biden at the end of the day. Biden won the state by a lot back in 2020, I think about 16 points, so it's safe blue. Moving on to New York, my home state, it is going. Oh, did not mean to click on North Dakota's polls. Yeah, New York, Biden used to lead by so much before, and now the Siena polls and Emerson polls say it's only around 12 to 10%. And Siena, that's a pretty good pollster for the state of New York. It's an A-plus pollster as well, so I am putting a lot of weight into that. But yeah, currently Biden's only up here by, on average, 11.7%. I think he's probably going to end up winning New York by about 12 or 13%. So that's a pretty massive shift for the right wing in New York. Biden won the state by about 22 points, I believe, back in 2020. So you see it trend 10 points to the right, basically, is just a massive shift. And that could have down ballot effects, especially in the House races. But for now, I'm keeping my House prediction the same in New York. I think D'Esposito is probably going to end up losing in NY 4th. And I think Lawler's probably going to end up losing that early, too. It's still a double-digit Biden seat, and Mondaire Jones isn't a bad candidate. But Molinaro is probably going to end up holding on. That's pretty much what that down-ballot effect indicates there. But let's go back to the map here. So New York is safe blue. It's not going to be likely blue by my standards. I think Biden will end up winning here by 13 points. Colorado would also be safe blue. I mean, the most recent poll here, let me just go back to the states. Most recent poll here has Biden up by 10 percentage points, and just based off the trends in Colorado, I still expect it to shift a bit bluer this election anyway, so I'd probably put this as a safe blue state still. Alaska, so there hasn't been a lot of polls in Alaska. It's kind of tough to gauge where it really leans right now. But so far, based on the data for progress polls, Trump's up by 12 here. He's probably going to end up winning here by a safe margin. But it could go down to likely potentially in the future. Moving on to Iowa, this is pretty much a safe red state at this point. Biden doesn't really have the best chances of winning here. The best pollster here shows Trump up by 15. So it's pretty much a done race here. Biden's not going to really spend any time here, and I don't think he should. It's pretty much gone the way of Missouri at this point. Missouri used to be a competitive state and pretty much became a safe red stronghold. Ohio, it's no longer a safe red state, in my opinion. A recent poll came out showing Trump only up here by 8 percentage points done in May. A lot of these older polls were done like months ago. So Biden's actually doing fine in Ohio, and this will definitely help out Sherrod Brown, just making that race a bit closer for the presidential race. So that'll definitely help Biden in the long term here. or just help Senate Democrats overall. But I would consider it a likely Republican state. I think Trump only wins here by 9 percentage points. Let's head to Florida. New polls have come out showing it as like a likely Republican race. Fox News even showed it as a 4% race. There was a lot of interesting Fox polls. It shows Biden down by like 5 in Arizona and Nevada, and showed a tied race in Virginia, but R plus 4 Florida. So I think there's something going on with their sampling, especially in Virginia and Florida, that show results like that. And there's no way Florida's more competitive than Arizona and Nevada. So I still expect Florida to go to Trump by 9 percentage points like Ohio would. So I still expect a massive shift in this state. Going down to Texas. Again, I don't think Biden's going to waste too much resources here. Trump appears to be up here by a high single digits margin, so it's likely Republican. Moving on to New Mexico. Again, there's not been a lot of polls out of New Mexico. It could even be a lean blue race for all we know, because the last poll was a year ago. But for now, I'm just going to assume New Mexico is likely blue. I'm just assuming it'll stay that margin based on the last recent poll here, which was forever ago. But it could even go down to lean blue at this point. We're going to head to, I guess, North Carolina next. And Trump continues to pretty much dominate here. Biden hasn't led in a poll in here basically forever. So I think the state is very likely to go for Trump at this point. So I'd put this as lean Republican. Again, I don't think North Carolina would really help Biden in his path to 270. It doesn't have a Senate race on the line either. So it really isn't the best state to invest resources in. It's good to put a little bit of resources into it so Democrats don't get wiped out here statewide, but there is a governor's race, so that's at least somewhat important for this state. But I think you'd have a better chance of just investing in the Rust Belt in Arizona and Nevada. But going down to Georgia, it's just looking extremely bleak for Biden. At least for the Democrats, there is no Senate race / governor's race here in 2024. So Biden could afford not to really invest a lot of money in this state, and he really wouldn't lose anything because pretty much every poll here, Trump, 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 shows him up, done in Georgia. So I think Biden's just kind of better off to write off Georgia at this point. It's looking really bleak for him. But some polls even showed as a 2 or 3 point race, so maybe it isn't fully a lost cause. But it looking like at this point, Biden's best path is to kind of ignore Georgia and focus on other states. So that's why I have Georgia as lean Republican, and that's currently where I'm putting it at. So in Maine, I would probably put it down to lean blue at this point, just based on how other states are getting a bit closer in Maine so far. A lot of polls one poll showed Trump up here. So for now, I'm putting it as a lean blue state. I think Biden wins here by about 4 percentage points, while Trump easily wins Maine second. He was leading here by like 14 points in some polls in Maine second with a good sample size. In Nebraska second, I think Biden's narrowly ahead here. A poll recently came out showing Biden up here by about 5 percentage points conducted in Nebraska second. Let's see if the website has it. Well, that's Maine second. Trump up by 14 or 20 percentage points. But in Nebraska second, a recent poll shows Biden up here by 5 percentage points with a sample of 400 likely voters. So I think that's a pretty sizable sample for that district. But I would put it as about lean blue for now. Let's check out Arizona polls. And so far, Trump still continues to lead. Fox News poll showed Trump up here by 5, which is a pretty large margin for the state of Arizona. They do have an abortion referendum on the ballot here, which would probably boost Democratic turnout, which is why I'm only putting it as a tilt Republican state. But Biden has a pretty good shot here, especially with Trump being a convicted felon now. I think that would probably alienate a few moderate Republicans to maybe reconsider voting for Donald Trump here. In the state of Nevada, Trump just continues to lead here via Ralston on Twitter. He's usually really good at calling Nevada elections. He even says Trump's favored in this state. Just based on the polling, I would probably put this as a lean Republican state as well. I think it would probably go a bit more Republican than Arizona, probably. But right now, I think Trump probably wins it Nevada by 1.5 percentage points, something like that. Moving on to the state of New Hampshire, most recent poll here shows Biden only up here by 4 percentage points with no undecided, which I really like. They actually pushed them this time. So this is a lean blue race at this point. So pretty much Biden, which is in his former likely blue states, we're seeing a lot of a shift to either lean blue or more competitive. But again, Nevada or New Hampshire is definitely going to be probably a Biden plus 4 percentage win, just like that poll suggested. But I still think he's quite favored here. Biden holds his numbers with white voters. He's not as much drift than he has among Latino voters in these polls, which honestly I do expect Latino voters to shift more right wing. I don't expect black voters to shift so much more right wing like some polls suggest. But Biden appears to be holding his own amongst older white voters. There isn't much as drift among them, which is why he holds on to Maine and New Hampshire, which are very white states. Going down to the state of Virginia, we have a very competitive race now. The four most recent polls show it as Biden plus 1, tie, Biden plus 1, tie. So they have two different samples here, I think. One of these must be a registered voter and likely voters, because they're just two different polls. Or maybe they're pushing the voters. That's what I think it is. They're probably pushing the undecideds in the next one after that. But still, in the most recent polls, Biden's only up by like 1 percentage point in Virginia, basically, which really has shifted the race. There's a few explanations why that is. One of the sample sizes says Trump's winning black voters by 25%, but I don't really think that's the reason why it's more competitive. I think back in 2020, Biden, when he won Virginia by 10 percentage points, he won a lot of center-right voters that would vote Republican down ballot, basically, that just didn't like Trump because of his personality. We're now seeing the center-right voters defect back to Trump because they just liked Trump's presidency more. So that could explain the shift of why Virginia is going from safe blue to lean blue at this point. But I still think Biden's going to end up winning Virginia by about 4 percentage points as of right now. It could go back to likely blue, but based on how close the polls are and that center-right voters recoalescing around Donald Trump when they defected from him back in 2020, I think we're seeing Virginia as a more competitive state here, and it could probably be able to move into swing state territory at this point. It's getting pretty close, but I'd still say it's a leaning Biden state for now. But it is a pretty drastic shift here to see Virginia D plus 10 go as a lean blue state at this point. So moving on to the Rust Belt states. In Minnesota, Biden continues to hold a pretty decent lead here. He still leads by about 2 percentage points. So at least for Biden, he isn't down to Trump in any polls in Minnesota. But it is pretty striking that another likely blue state has gone down to lean blue at this point. So New Hampshire, Maine, Virginia all go down from likely to lean blue. New Mexico might be the next to join that club of a shift down to lean blue. We have to see. But New Mexico could be one of those states. Now we're down to Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. This is where the election is really decided, in my opinion. I feel like Pennsylvania is the kingmaker state. But typically these Rust Belt states, they end up voting together. But we're going to take a look at Wisconsin. It's a whiter state out of those three. But Biden actually continues to pull the best and out of these three states in this state. Usually it's a tie or even a Biden lead or even a Trump lead by 1%. But overall, in the average, Biden actually leads narrowly in the state of Wisconsin. I think that's mainly due to incumbency advantage. I think Wisconsin just likes to elect or re-elect their incumbents. We already saw them back in 2022 re-elect both their incumbents with their governor and their senator. They re-elected both of them. Even their senator, who was very unpopular, and their governor, who had mixed approval ratings, they both won re-election in the state of Wisconsin, ticket splitting in the state. So I think I think he's narrowly favored in Wisconsin just due to that, and he pulls the best here. It's a more wider state, so we're seeing less voters defecting from him. In Michigan, there is a lot of Muslim voters in this state that could decide the election. I think they're still going to end up voting for Biden at the end of the day, because I think they're going to realize Trump would be worse for what's going on in in Gaza right now. But again, Trump so far has a narrow lead in the polls in Michigan. But some polls even show Biden up here by 1 percentage point as well. And some polls even show it as a pretty much a tie. New York Times Siena shows Biden up here by 1 percentage point as well. So I think just due to incumbency advantage, I think that'll give Biden a slight boost here. He is in a tie in the most recent poll. Trump's really not over 50% in any of these polls either. Biden even got to 50% in one of these. So I think Biden's narrowly favored in the state of Michigan, like in Wisconsin. So the election pretty much comes down to Pennsylvania. So it's the tipping point state here, and this is the toughest state for me to call because recently Trump has just been up in the polls, except for one poll showing Biden up here. Even in New York Times Siena, Trump leads here, but Trump isn't over 50% in this poll. Only Biden has achieved that margin at some point. So again, Trump's pretty much stuck at around 47 to 48% in a lot of these polls. I think incumbency advantage could give Biden a bit of a boost here. I mean, historically, we saw in 2012 and 2020 that incumbency advantage gave Trump and Obama like a 2 to 3% boost in most states. So we could see that happen with Joe Biden. And this is his birth state after all. He did spend his childhood in this state. He has a deep connection to the state of Pennsylvania. So it's a extremely hard state to call here. I mean, we probably could see Pennsylvania go more red than Wisconsin at this point. So having a red PA and a blue Wisconsin, it isn't super far-fetched, honestly. But I just think with the post-conviction that we're going to see a bit more polls in Pennsylvania showing uh, Donald Trump down to Joe Biden. I mean, I probably expect the most recent poll to come out showing Biden up here by 2 percentage points at this point. So, because he's been convicted by a jury in New York, I think Donald Trump's not favored to win Pennsylvania as of right now. However, it's his most legitimate path to the White House. So, it's not far-fetched to say Trump could win Pennsylvania, but I just think with incumbency advantage and that conviction, which I believe probably hurt Trump with independence, I think this will be a narrow Joe Biden victory just with super narrow wins in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. They typically vote together, but we might see them vote against each other come in 2024. That could very well happen. But as of right now, I think Biden's narrowly favored to win. Probably a 52% chance at victory, I would put it at. That conviction helped him a little bit. Didn't help him massively, but it did give him a boost of 2 percentage points, I would say. But that's my current take on the electoral map. And let me know what you think of this video down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And if you're new to this channel, I would highly recommend subscribing if you enjoy content like this. Alrighty, I'll see you later.